During a high school class project, my teacher told me it's unrealistic being a CEO. It's been my dream to be a CEO since I was 10. So I told her, it is realistic. Follow me on my journey to learn what it takes to become a CEO. Hey guys, welcome to another episode of the Realistic CEO Podcast. Today I'm here with LaTonia Monroe-Naylor. So how are you doing today?
Hi, and well, are you?
I'm doing great. So my first question I'm going to ask you is, what inspired you to become a CEO and run two of your own businesses?
Wow. The greatest inspiration for me has been my children. I always wanted to make sure that they had better and more than I did. And I always wanted to set the example that people can't limit you, that you can achieve anything that you want to achieve, but you got to do it properly. You got to work hard. You got to have strategy and a plan, and you got to do it with integrity.
Can you tell me a little bit about your journey?
Absolutely. So my journey actually started when I was 16. A lot of people are starting to learn this about me, that when I was 16, I used to rap and all of that good stuff. And I was leaving a studio, walking with a friend, and some guys jumped on us. Really, they jumped on him and they tried to shoot him. And as a result, I got shot. And so when I got shot in the chest, I remember thinking I was going to die. And I remember being in and out, and I saw my grandmother, who was a pastor at the time, and she was at the hospital somehow. Miraculously, she showed up to the hospital and nobody telling her to be there. She just was there. And she had been praying for me, and she let me know that she had been praying for me. And from that moment, it was like this gratitude that I'm here for a purpose, but I didn't understand my purpose, but I knew it had to be greater than what I was doing. And that was when I started seeking God, because I just didn't understand anything else to do. And I started to feel like I wanted to help people. I wanted to give back. I wanted to find out why those kids felt they had to rob us or try to rob us that night. And how do we prevent that from happening to other kids? And so that was my journey to getting into human services, mentoring, youth leadership, all of that. And it led me down the path of being able to start my own nonprofit. And it also led me down the path of saying, hey, not only do our kids need help, but there's a lot of other people that need to learn how I did it, and I want to teach them. So I wrote a book, and I started a business, and I'm doing that also. So I get to do the wonderful world of nonprofit where I'm helping youth and families, but then I also get the wonderful world of entrepreneurship where I can teach people how to do it for themselves.
So far in your experience of being an entrepreneur and being successful, what are some things that you were able to learn throughout your journey?
One of the things that I learned was that I underestimated my own abilities. Like, I looked at other people and I saw them as being these great stars and on these pedestals. And not that they weren't worthy of honor, but I could do it too. And so as I started to navigate and people actually started to look at me like somebody to come to, I'm like, I'm just me. I'm like, what's so special about me that you're coming to me for help? And then they would say why, but it helped me to understand, like, if you don't know somebody's journey, then you are going to imagine all of these things without having the information. But once I started to meet with people, have mentors, people that taught me how they got where they were, then I started realizing it was attainable. It was something that I could do too. So I would say that was the biggest thing that I learned, and also the authenticity of who I am. Like, stick with that. Don't try to change who I am. Don't try to change the fact that I'm a woman of faith. Like, there's a lot of people who don't care for people of faith. That's fine. That's probably not my target audience. That's not my market. That's not my people. And the more that I started to understand that, I don't need to change who I am to be able to give people what I have to give, that the people who want what I have will find me. The more that I started to grow in my business, both businesses, because I started to connect with people who had the same kind of like-hearted mindset as me and the same mission-rich mindset of, I want to give back and I want to help, whether it's through a for-profit business or a nonprofit. But there's these people out here that have not turned their back on society, who want to help contribute. And those are the kind of people that I want to be with.
So you said that there's people that, aren't like in faith and that aren't your target audience. So like, how are you able to keep on going? People might look at you a different way because of how like they might not agree with how you present yourself.
I had to be confident in who I am. I think that when we don't know who we are, we allow people to define us. But when we know who we are, then it's like, this is who I am, and I have a reason to stand in my faith. I have a reason to stand on what I believe, and I respect you in your decision to do whatever you do, and I think I deserve that respect as well. But if you're not willing to give it, I'm cool with that too, because it's not my battle. I can move on to the next. And every time that I've had somebody that has maybe, I don't want to say disrespected, but some people have, disrespected me because of my faith and stuff like that. Or not just that, being a woman or being a black woman, right? There's some people that just have it in their mind that they don't want to work with black women, they don't want to work with black people. That's fine. That's good. You're not my people. Somebody else will come along that wants to work with me and sees the value that I bring to the table. So I think hitting walls, but then also realizing every time I hit a wall, it was a direction down another hallway for me to get through another door that was better than the one I was trying to get through anyways, is what continues to give me the confidence to keep pushing forward.
So when you're going and maybe you're going through and hit a wall, what are some ways that you're able to make sure that you're able to keep going?
Well, number one, I look at my systems, right? I have certain systems that I follow, and one of them is my ABCD framework, which is actionable, activatable passion, bankable time, the capacity to manage my family and to balance my life. And then D is delivering with empathy and with excellence, right? And so if I do something and I'm following that framework, then I know if I'm doing it right or wrong. If I'm not giving my authentic self and being empathetic, then I have to question, well, why am I trying to do this? Is this the right connection? Is this the right person? If a person doesn't value my time and they don't want to pay for my services, and not just pay monetarily, sometimes it's not about getting the check written to you. Sometimes it's about leveraging a relationship or somebody saying, hey, come speak on a panel or something like that, because they're giving you opportunity. They see the value of what you do. And if those things aren't happening, I'm like, well, maybe this is not the right way for me to go. So I always do a check to make sure, is this something that I'm doing because of an emotional feeling, because I see this bright star and I think this is what I'm supposed to do, or is this something that I really need to do that's according to the strategy that I've already put in place? And then I also think about, who am I connected to? Who's my circle? Who's my folks that, whether it's business circle, personal circle, who are the people that I can go to that I know I can trust, that they're not going to just tell me what I want to hear. They're going to be completely honest with me about what I need to hear, right? And so anytime I hit the wall, I always ask the question. I pray about it, of course, but I always look at my system, and then I look at my circle, and I'm like, what do you think? And then they give me feedback, and then I can reset and recalculate.
So when you're able to go through your system and you might face a problem, it's in your system, maybe it didn't work how you thought as planned.
Yes.
How are you able to keep on going when that happens?
Well, what I've always found is it doesn't always have to work out the way that I plan it, as long as I have a plan. Because if you have a plan, then there's B, C, D, and E. Mm-hmm. If you don't have any plan, then you don't know what went right, what went wrong. So that's the benefit of having a plan in the first place. Did it not work because of something I did? Did it not work because of the person? Did it not work because of the timing, the money, the cost? Or did I miss something? Did I not have the right team players? Then I can say, okay, let me get to plan B, C, D. But going into it without a plan is not sensible, because when you go into it without a plan, you never can measure what your effectiveness is or why it wasn't effective. Why didn't it bring the fruit that I was hoping that it would bring?
So you talked about a team and having a circle that you can trust. How are you able to build a team and have a circle that you can trust?
There was a time when I just let anybody in my space. And then there was a time where people started burning me and I wouldn't let anybody in my space, right? So I've had both ends of it. And what I started to do is the folks that I trust, I let them be a part of the vetting process of who I bring in. I trust their judgment, because I can remember some of the people that didn't work out, and some of the people in my circle saying, I don't know about that person. And I ignored it because I like the person or I think they're great. And then they do stuff and I'm like, oh man, I wish I would have listened. So I kind of put in place my own guardrails where I say, okay, before I bring somebody in to do this kind of work for me, or before I bring somebody in to go to events with me and be a part of my circle, let me vet them to see if they are a good fit. Let me make sure before I hire somebody that I have a process in place, right? Am I checking references? Am I making sure that I do background checks on people? And those things are important. It may feel like, oh, it's a waste of time because you know the person or you heard of them. But then once you start to check references, you're like, oh, I noticed that this person is not consistent. Maybe this is not the person I need to work with, or maybe just not in this capacity, right? So I think it's really important that again, systems are so important. It was a time when I didn't rely on that. I'm just like, oh, I love this person, they're great. Or no, this person is not great because I don't like them, you know. And then I found that some of the people that I judge, like, oh, I don't think I'm going to like this person because they talk too harsh or they're too assertive, are the best ones for me to work with because they're going to tell me what I need to hear and they're not going to sugarcoat it. And maybe it doesn't feel good, but that don't mean that they're bad for me, right? So looking at things from a more analytical perspective, looking at things from a more strategic, systemic perspective helps us to be able to do better as business owners because money is not personal. It's not. Money is money. It's business is not personal. But a lot of times we take things personal and we let it affect our decisions in business. And yes, relationships are important, right, in business, but there's a difference between relationships and taking things personal. And I think a lot of times we can get caught in, and I've done it, and I've learned from it, and I'm still learning, you know, that we cannot allow our personal feelings about some things to intervene with or interfere with our ability to make sound decisions as to what is best for the mission of my organization or the growth of my organization.
So you said to make sure that you aren't like emotional. Like, what are some ways to make sure that you able to be emotional, like, and have a kind heart with people, but also be able to make sure they're not trying to like screw you over at the same time?
Setting boundaries. Contracts are important. I am a big believer in contracts. When I first started again, I just worked with people. Now, as I bring people onto my team, we got contracts in place. This is what I'm expecting from you. This is the intellectual property I'm expecting to protect, things of that nature. Because if I don't keep it 100 up front, it's hard to set boundaries after you already let people walk over you and say, let me push you back. It's like visualizing a farm. If you don't have a gate up and all the cattle are running rampant, now you're trying to get them back in place, but if you just had the fence up, they wouldn't have been able to get away. So I look at it from that standpoint of let me set boundaries, and then as we grow in our relationship, maybe some of those boundaries decrease, but for now, I need to have a system in place. I need to have boundaries. So that's one way with contracts. The other way that I do it is like making sure that I am not, like if I know I'm feeling some kind of way, I step back from it. So I might be getting ready to send an email, but I'm hot right now. I'm not sending the email when I'm hot. I'm gonna wait the next day. I'm gonna wait an hour, come back, and then I'm gonna send it. Let me look at it again and make sure what context I'm coming from, because I know the brand that I display. People expect a kind person. They expect a person that respects. If I send this email out while I'm hot, they're not gonna get that. That's not the delivery that they're looking for. That can cost me a business relationship, right? So every time we're operating in our emotions, we have to think, what message is it sending? Because what I intend to send out my mouth may not be the message they receive based on my actions, right? And so it's very important that we take our time and we pace ourselves. I never allow somebody to rush me into making a decision. If I feel you're rushing me, you're not getting a decision. If the decision has to be made right now, then the answer is no. I used to let people push me into making decisions quick. Oh, we got to move fast. There's a deadline. Well, sorry about your deadline, but I got to take time to refresh. I got to take time to take this back to my circle, to my mentor, so that I'm not the only one thinking about it, because again, we all have bias. I might look at it like this is a golden opportunity, but my mentor might say, no, you didn't pay attention to this, that, and the third. You're right. Let me ask those questions. Oh, you know what? This is not a good deal. So that's why the emotion part has to be checked. And when you're a really kind person, your emotions usually can take like front row. Because you care about people. Oh, well, I'm not going to charge them because they're going through stuff. Oh, I'm not going to charge them because they just got to get a new car. Well, they're going to pay for those Jordans. They're going to pay for them nails to get done. So why can't they pay me for my services? I had to start reframing like the value that I have. And again, the emotions can interfere with that, but I had to be confident that I know my value and I set it up front.
So knowing that you're a kind person and you're able to put your emotions behind. When you're, like, say, someone might have a bad day and they come into work, you might be a little down. How are you able to build them up?
Well, one of the things we do when we have meetings and stuff like that is whether I'm doing a presentation, whether I'm doing a staff meeting, I have this thing where I call setting your intentions. And I pull people in and I'm like, okay, let's take a deep breath. Let's visualize this, like whatever the exercise is for the day. But I have a way of like bringing everybody in so that we can all have a reset at this moment. I also am an open door. Like people have something they need to talk to me about, then they can come in my office and talk to me. Anytime my door is open, they know they can just knock on the door and come in. But I also think it's important that we are, again, setting boundaries in the beginning. I'm very intentional about how my staff like to be communicated with. If something is going on, how do you want me to approach you on that? So I'm already having this conversation before an issue happens, so I don't have to wait in the moment and be like, oh my God, should I say something? No, this person is the kind of person that don't want me to say nothing right now. Maybe tomorrow when they're ready, they'll come say something to me, right? So I think, again, always, and policies sometimes can help with this, but also it's just a communication thing. Like, when I sit down with my staff, like, what's the best mode of conversation? How do you want us to deal with conflict? How do you feel most comfortable if I approach you about an issue or a question that I have or a concern that I have, you know? And then because I know that, then I know how to interact with my staff.
So I've noticed so far in every interview, everybody's always said communication is important.
Yes.
So why is communication important to you?
Communication is about relationships and trust. What most people don't realize is with communication, 50% of it is about trust. So if I don't have a good relationship with you, it is going to be very difficult for me to be able to effectively communicate with you. If you are always wondering if I'm being honest or wondering if I have any hidden agendas, then no matter what I say, it's not going to be effective because you're always going to have a guard up. So I think it's very important that that trust factor happen, right? For me and for the individual. I let people know, look, if I feel some kind of way, if I feel like you might be lying to me, we're going to have a problem. So let's be completely honest with each other. Even if you don't think I'm going to like your answer, be honest. I tell my kids that all the time. If you tell me the truth, you won't get in trouble. Like, I'm not the one that wants to play games. So I'm all about honesty and transparency. And because I am that way with what I want, I try to be that way with people as much as possible. So building a relationship, building a trust, and then from there, it's about technique. So like I said, not sending an email when I'm hot or when I'm feeling whatever extreme. Sometimes you're in a really, really great mood and you want to say something like, maybe you telling this person about how they're late every day is not the time because you're in such a happy mood right now. You might not give them the repercussion that they need, right, or the consequence. And so just being very intentional about that helps you to understand what lens is it that people are seeing what I do through, right? What lens am I carrying when I'm communicating with this individual? What does the body language look like? Am I aware of whether this person is a relator or analyzer or driver or an expressor, right? Because that's going to determine whether or not or how I deliver information to them, right? So I'm intentional about wanting to understand that and sitting down with somebody and, oh, I know what kind of person I'm dealing with. It helps me to have a sane mind because sometimes you're in a restaurant and you're dealing with an analytical person and they want to do this and do that. And you're like, why are they being annoying? Well, they're not being annoying. This is how they work. This is how their mind works. So I understand that. So now I don't take that as disrespect. So those kinds of things are important to have that communication, whether it's a verbal or just a behavioral or just an observant, type of thing. It helps you when you have that communication with folks.
So when you're able to have your employees come and talk to you. So when you might be having a bad day, how are you able to uplift others around you so it doesn't spread out to them?
So they know I'm having a hard day because they'll hear my gospel music playing. Normally, if I'm stressed, I put my music on and I'm just like, shut the door. Give me a moment to reset. They know what that means when my door is shut. I have my gospel music on. It's just an unspoken thing. I need to reset right now. And then once I reset, I open up my door and I'm good. I'm not taking out my day on you because you didn't do anything. And number one, even if you did, I still don't think that I'm supposed to do that. I feel like I'm putting it in God's hands, let him handle it. So I think that you have to model the things that you want other people to see. And so what happens a lot of times as a CEO, if you are doing it properly, because there's some people that don't do it properly, you're not venting out on your staff and you're not taking things out on them because it's not healthy for them to see that as what leadership is supposed to be. So whenever I really have an issue and I really need to talk to somebody, I have mentors that I can go to and I'm like, look, we need to schedule a lunch. Like today, I need to talk to you. We need to get together because I'm dealing with something. I don't know how to handle it. And that's the best consequence for me. It's like, let this be the response to the fact that I'm dealing with something, not me taking it out on the people that I work with.
So as a leader, how are you able to lead a group of people to the right direction?
Knowing the goal and being able to enroll people in the vision and making sure that they understand what the goal is. A lot of times we will think we communicated what the goal is. We will think they know what their responsibility is. And then we will realize they don't have a clue because of how they're responding. Or you might hear complaints about stuff. You're like, I don't think this person really understands what's going on, right? So I take the responsibility as a leader. Like, it's my job to make sure that we have the retreats. It's my job to make sure we're doing our reviews and we're checking in, because if I'm not doing my part to make sure that they know what they're supposed to do so that we can get to the goal, they're not going to be effective. It's my job to make sure that they have access to professional development, that they know where their strengths are, where their weaknesses are, where are the things that we are doing things as an entity to prohibit them from moving forward, so that we can change and shift things around here, or what policies are in place that are actually limiting us from getting to where we need to go, right? So that's my job as a leader. That's my job to get the board engaged so that they understand we need to shift some things if we need to, or whatever information they might want to bring to the table. And so I think that at the end of the day, the goal is there. We all should know what the goal is, but it's my job to make sure people are pushed along, pulled along, however way it needs to be to get there. But I'm not blaming nobody else for us not getting there. I'm taking the responsibility to make sure that it happens.
So how are you able to take responsibility for something that might not be your fault, but you're like, I gotta say it because I am the leader. So how are you able to do that?
Yes. Well, first of all, I acknowledge the assets. I speak to the strengths. When I'm sitting down with somebody doing a check-in, I'm telling them all the things they're doing well. I don't call something that they're doing where they're challenged at a weakness per se. I say, okay, here's an opportunity for growth. How can we talk about growth? What things do you think you need to help you with growing in spite of this particular challenge that you're exhibiting? And then people know what their challenge is, and they often know, this is what I need. I just don't know how to get there. So it could be a training. It could be, I need you to check in with me more often. It could be this policy we have in place needs to be, rectified because it's not helping me. It could be the hours that we're working, whatever it is. And then being able to take heed to that and give them that power in that moment to say, hey, I also understand that you're the one that's holding yourself accountable, but I also know that there's things that I need to do to be held accountable. That's when you have a loyal team. When you don't hire the right people or bring in the right people, then you're subject to get people who really don't care about the goal and don't care about your growth and don't care if they're a hindrance. They're just there for the money. That's all they're there for. They could care less about anything else. When it's very intentional when you bring people into your team that you know that you've done whatever you could do to ensure as much as possible that they align with the purpose, with the mission, with the culture that you have, so that they're not kicking against all the progress that you're trying to do and being a very, I would say, your worst enemy of your entity, because it's internal. It's one thing to have struggles from outside and conflict from outside. It's another thing when you have people internally that are causing the conflict. So how do we ensure, number one, is hiring and bringing on the right people and having the processes in place. I've had to learn through trial and error how to get the right people in. And then from there, ensuring that we're all holding each other accountable.
When you're trying to hire the right people, what are some characteristics that you're looking into a person?
I look for whether or not a person is self-motivated. I look at the fact of whether or not a person can think outside the box, if they can think creatively. I look at whether or not they have experience working with people and have had success with working with people. I think that you can train people to do certain technical things, but you can't train people to be good people and have authenticity. Like, if they don't want to be a person who's honest and authentic and transparent, if that's not who they are, that's not who they're going to be. And you can't change that overnight because you hired them. So I think that certain factors you look at of a person and you're like, yeah, this is the kind of person I don't mind being in the same space with. I'd rather teach them how to do the software, teach them how to do the technical piece, because they got a good heart and they got an understanding of the mission. They care about the mission. They're going to be willing to put in the work versus somebody who comes with all of the skills, all the check boxes, but their heart is not right in the way of speaking. And when I say that is that they don't know how to work with people. They don't care to work with people. It's very clear that for them, it's all about the money. And if that's the case, they're not going to be good for you if you're a mission-driven organization.
Okay. So when you might hire somebody else like that, what are some ways that you're able to tell right away, this person's like that?
When they start asking questions about their salary, when they're going to get an increase, and they just got hired, you're like, okay, you just got hired. I know you got a reasonable increase salary, especially from what you were making before. And why are you asking already? Like, it's not even like, so that's one of the questions they start to ask. They start complaining about what they're doing. They start blaming other people for why they can't get stuff done, or they're late all the time, leaving early, taking extended lunch breaks. Then you start to pick up on the fact that this person ain't ready. So one of the things we implemented in the last year was that we started having a very strict 90-day rule. And what we did is we made people per diem for 90 days, where you're not staff, you don't get any benefits of staff until you are here for 90 days. No keys, no parking pass, nothing until you're here for 90 days, because we need to make sure that you are a good fit for this organization and you really understand the work that we do, especially as a small business that's growing. And so that's helped us a lot, because we've had a few people that we hoped would be, with us for a while that just didn't work out. And we're still cool with them and all of that, but they just didn't work out because they really didn't have the same passion for the work that we do.
So as a leader, what are like some ways that you have been able to become a better leader over the years?
One of the ways I've been able to become better is being honest with myself. I don't like to conceal where my weaknesses are, where my challenges are. And I don't like blaming other people for things where I feel like I could have improved in or something like that. So if something is going wrong, I take full responsibility of that. But the balance of it is, and this is another area that I struggle with, is that I can take the responsibility as the leader, but that doesn't mean that it's actually my fault that it happened. You know what I'm saying? Because one thing of a good leader is we don't want to get the accolades when everything is right, and then when something goes wrong, we blame people. Like, that's not good. So I take the responsibility, and I try to, as much as possible, uplift my staff for the things that are good and successful. But I've learned to hold people accountable when it's their fault. So if they did something that contributed to whatever happened, I might publicly say, I apologize to the board and it won't happen again. But I'm going to go and meet with that person and say, hey, you did X, Y, Z, you dropped the ball, and that can't happen again. And there was a time when I wouldn't do that kind of stuff. It was that niceness of, I'll cover it, I'll make sure everything is okay. And almost like a mommying people kind of thing, where it was like, I'm always covering people, always thinking about what they're dealing with outside of work as well as internally. And I had to start setting up real boundaries so that I don't overextend myself and burn myself out. Something called compassion fatigue that a lot of people who are in human services experience. When you're a really caring leader, you can get into that place where you experience compassion fatigue because you just care about people so much, So that's something that I've had to learn over the years to improve on.
So how are you able to improve over the years on your weaknesses?
So intentionality of professional development. I surround myself with people who are doing the things that I want to do. I surround myself with people who are strong in the areas that I want to be strong. So perfect example is I have a mentor right now who's my coach. And I had a book. I wanted to write my book, but it was all in my head and everything, right? And I was like, okay, how do I get this book out of my head that's been in here for 6 years? But I couldn't because it was just spinning, because it wasn't clear for me. It's like I have all this in me, but I don't know how to get it out. And it was the same thing happening with my business. Like, I'm trying to do everything. I'm not delegating to people. I'm not helping, like pulling people in to be responsible. I'm trying to do everything. And so she was able to coach me through like taking everything out of my head and setting up frameworks so that I could have my policies in place, my systems in place, so that I could get my book written, like all of these different things. And that was something that changed the whole trajectory of the organization, because I was able to then almost duplicate myself, because now there's things that I was doing that now somebody else can do even better than me because they have more time to do it and they understand why it needs to be done. But I didn't know how to articulate it because I was just kind of moving so fast that I wasn't working on the organization. I was just in the organization. So those are some of the things that I feel like helped me to improve. Taking leadership training, I went through a whole leadership program for a year. Because again, if you act like you know everything, you can't learn anything. So I've been very intentional about humbling myself. Like, what can I learn today? One of my mottos is I got to learn something new every day. And so if I'm not learning something, I'm not growing. And so how do I continue to grow? Because there's always more ways to do things even better, more efficiently, more effectively. And the more we do that better, the more capacity we have to help more people, right?
So owning two businesses, how are you able to balance work with family?
That's such a good question. I have got my kids involved in everything that I do. I teach them. They're all business owners in their own way. One of them has a babysitting business. Another one has a hair business. And now she's doing social media. Another one, she has all kind of stuff she's doing. She does music and things like that. And then I have another one that does public speaking and things of that nature. So they all have found their little pathways to do some of the things that they love to do because I've taught them how, here's a way for you to take the passion that you have and use that as a gift to be able to engage, whether it's you getting money as a business or whether you engaging in volunteer service or civic engagement. Like, it's not for you to just sit around and hold on to and hoard it. It's for you to give it away. And so they come to my meetings with me. They're involved in my programs with me. They were the first youth leaders in our programs because they've been the ones involved from the beginning, And so I think it's important as CEOs that we don't separate our business life from our family life. Like, this is a part of the legacy of bringing your family in and teaching them how to do these things so that they understand that there's a greater benefit and there's a greater destiny for them than even what we had. So I look at it like my ceiling is my kids' floor. Mm-hmm. Wherever I started, they're going to start a whole level up higher than me because they have more that they have to build on as a foundation than what I had. I had to learn a lot of things the hard way. They don't have to learn the hard way. If you just listen and apply, do it your way. I'm not saying my way is the only way, but here's some systems that will absolutely, no matter what business you have, no matter what you do in life, here are some systems that you absolutely need to employ to be successful. And right now, they're doing a pretty good job of it.
Thank you. So I got one more question.
Yes.
What is one fun fact that nobody really knows about?
Ooh. Well, I already said I rap. That's one I used to rap. I don't rap anymore. Gosh, I think that's like the main fun fact of me, that I was a rapper. I opened up for Biz Markie, the late Biz Markie. He passed away a few years ago now. I opened up for Tribe Called Quest in UMass Center. Actually out in Amherst, they had a big thing and I was able to open up for them. And I almost got signed by Jermaine Dupri. So it was like, I was literally like a little rap phenom growing up. I love my rapping, but now my daughter is doing it and she's stepping it up. Like I said, my ceiling is her floor and she's already hitting the ground running with her music, and I'm looking forward to helping her on her journey.
Thank you for allowing me to interview you today. I appreciate you taking the time out of your day.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, guys. Thanks for watching. See you guys in the next video. Later.